Welcome to the presentation from Management 320, Fundamentals of Entrepreneurship Online. Today's presentation is on social entrepreneurship. Our textbook for Chapter 2 has a chapter on ethics and social responsibility, doing the right thing. This is a change from previous editions, and it's a welcome change. However, for most of us, the material you see in the textbook has probably been reviewed in Management 310 or Management 301, Business Ethics. So instead of repeating much of that material, which you should already know or have been exposed to earlier, I'm going to take it in a different direction. I'm going to focus the entire video presentation on social entrepreneurship. Usually, I do my social entrepreneurship presentation towards the end of the course. However, I felt this was nice circumstances to bring it up a little bit earlier. Social entrepreneurship does fall within the topic of Chapter 2, but this presentation allows us to get a little bit deeper, focus more on the field itself. So with that, let's get going. Usually I begin a presentation with our key objectives, but when I talk about social entrepreneurship, I like to change it up just a little bit. Instead, I like to ask key questions. Now, if this were an in-person class, we would go through each question, talk about it, and build to the next one. However, we can't quite do that here. The first question, if money were not an issue, would you work? What would you do? Most of the time, the students say, if money were not an issue, if I had lots of money all of a sudden, no, I wouldn't work, or I'd travel the world, or I'd buy a fancy sports car. But after that excitement and euphoria ended, what would you do? Hopefully, many of you would say, well, I'd look at a way to give back to society, keep active, keep busy, do volunteer work, or something like that. That leads us to the next question. What is really important to you? What is it that you value? Because oftentimes, what's important to you now that your financial security has been taken care of in question number 1, it allows you to reach out and do other things in life. More importantly, it builds to the third question, what social or environmental problems concern you? Where is it that you want to see a change? Now that you have the time, energy, and focus to look to help society, where do you want to look? This is what social entrepreneurship is about. Is there a way that you can try to address some of the social environmental problems in our world using some of the tools of business? So, quick definition in history. Now, there's no standard definition of social entrepreneurship, but here's a pretty good one. The application of business tools and techniques to address social problems through innovative solutions. We know that in the business world, entrepreneurs try to create something new to address a problem, business-oriented problem, that they see. Social entrepreneurship can be viewed through a very similar lens. You have these tools, techniques, you see a problem out there, and you want to fix it by creating something new. In many ways, social entrepreneurship is a discipline of social change agents. These are the people who envision a better world, better potential for what we can be, and want to change society and move it towards those ends. It's a very difficult thing to do, just like starting a business can be a very difficult thing to do. Social entrepreneurship throughout the United States is primarily taught through the business departments, mainly because many of the tools that these social agents need to use are business tools and techniques. Business is a very applied field. Social change is a very applied field. I can bring the two together and do great things. Now, on the bottom of this slide, I have a picture of Bill Drayton, CEO and founder of Ashoka Innovators for the Public. Bill Drayton was one of the first people to coin the phrase, at least commonly use the phrase, of social entrepreneurship. He is a former consultant from McKinsey. McKinsey is a top business consulting firm in the world. And he recognized that social entrepreneurs needed a place to come together to share ideas, to help promote each other's visions, and of course, to share resources. That's why he created the Ashoka Foundation. It is now seen by most of us as a leading organization to promote social change agents through social entrepreneurship. The other organization is the Skoll Foundation. And I have a video here for you by Sally Osberg, the CEO of the Skoll Foundation, where she talks about the social entrepreneur. Because just like in business, where we see the business entrepreneur is one who leads a change to create a new business idea or concept, the social entrepreneur is the individual who takes on that task, takes on that burden to try to create something new for society. Unfortunately, I'm not able to embed the videos here. So instead, you see the link at the bottom, and I've also put the link on Laulima. I strongly recommend pausing this presentation, opening up a new window or new tab, getting to Laulima, and watching Sally Osberg's presentation. It's only about 2 minutes. With that idea about the social entrepreneur, we can continue with some of Sally Osberg's work, particularly an article she and Roger Martin, who at the time was the dean at the Toronto School of Business, to try to understand social entrepreneurship a little better and begin to separate it from other forms of social engagement. So Martin and Osberg, they recognize that for social entrepreneurship to exist, there are 3 conditions. First off, you need to identify an unjust social problem that causes suffering. Just like in business, you need to see that there's a need in the market. Next, identify a way to solve that unjust social problem. Again, using the tools and techniques of business or entrepreneurship, you have the problem identification and the opportunity identification, creating a solution. Now, what separates social entrepreneurship from other types of social engagement is number 3. Number 3 is create new social equilibrium that alleviates suffering. What we mean here is you're trying to change the entire equation, not simply provide a band-aid to the problem. The example the social entrepreneurs like to use relates to fishing. If there's hunger in the world, we often say you can give a man a fish and you fed him and his family for the day. Or you can teach him how to fish and you fed him and his family for a lifetime. Teaching people how to fish is more in line with social entrepreneurship because you're changing the existing situation, create a new equilibrium for him and his family. If you simply provide him a fish, you are doing good, but it's more of a temporary problem to alleviate pain for the moment, because the next day, the problem continues to exist. Trying to find a way to disrupt the status quo, to move it in a new vision, a new direction, is where social entrepreneurs seek to go. Now, that can be a little bit confusing, so what we're going to do is go further into Osberg and Martin's article and talk about how social entrepreneurship differs from different forms of social engagement. So on this graph, we have on the bottom the outcome. Existing system maintained. This would be the equivalent providing them a fish. You're addressing the problem of hunger, but you're not fundamentally changing the situation. New system created, that's disrupting and creating a new equilibrium, teaching them how to fish. So sustaining the solution into the future. On the vertical axis, we have nature of action, direct versus indirect. Direct is you're actually getting your hands dirty, putting your feet on the ground, and taking direct action to bring about the new change that you want to do. Indirect action is a more passive approach, stepping back. So let's look at some examples. First off, social service provision. Notice here, direct action, existing system maintained. In social service provision, you're providing a needed service to a community or a society. I'd like to use the example here of some local organizations which are great for social service provision. And keep in mind, social service provision is a good thing. They're doing good for society. On the left side, we have St. Francis Health Care System for Hawaii, but more specifically, St. Francis West. For a long time here on the west side of Oahu, we had a problem. No medical services. Yes, there were a few clinics, but no hospitals. If you needed urgent medical care, you needed to go into town, which, as you all know, with traffic at times, could take a very, very long time. There, St. Francis saw there was a problem, and they provided a very needed service to the community by creating St. Francis West, providing medical attention or medical services that we need here. Other local organizations which do social service provision include the Hawaii State Chapter of the American Red Cross for disaster relief. And at the bottom we have PACT, Parents and Children Together. They provide services to families, focusing primarily on families with children. Another form of social engagement is social activism. And notice here it's down for indirect action, new system created. For social activism, they seek they're seeking a new social equilibrium to improve society or community. So like entrepreneurs, they have a vision of how things can be better. That vision of the future is what they want to work towards, but they don't take direct action. They're doing it more indirectly from the back, often through lobbying, raising awareness, and so forth. A great organization to talk about in terms of social activism is Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Through their work, they have helped reduce the BAC blood alcohol level that drivers are allowed to have all the way down in Hawaii to 0.08. When I was younger, the level was significantly higher, and we had significantly more drunk driving accidents. Mothers Against Drunk Driving, MAD, recognize that's a problem and have a vision of a world where no family loses their children to a drunk driver. They've worked through our legislature, through lobbying, through raising awareness to help promote laws and regulations that make it harder for drunk drivers to be on the road, because that's a danger for all of us in society. Another organization which does great social activism is PASS, Pacific Alliance to Stop Slavery. Most of us in Hawaii would think, well, slavery is not a problem here, but you're wrong. Hawaii has an underground sexual slavery market. PASS has worked to raise awareness about the situation, to work with the legislature to create new laws to make it more difficult for human traffickers to operate here in Hawaii. Again, they don't take direct action. They're not going to these places trying to make arrests themselves, but rather they're working through other channels to try to create their social change. Social entrepreneurship, or the focus of this presentation, exists in the top right corner. There you seek a new system, and you're also taking direct action. The idea behind social entrepreneurship is you want to create a new social equilibrium by providing direct service to society. Just like the social activists, they have a vision of how society can be a better place. Just like the social service providers, they take direct action to bring that into being. Social entrepreneurship, as the name suggests, in many ways relates to business entrepreneurship because you're using much of the same tools, techniques to get it there. That entrepreneurial awareness, the proactive behavior and actions of the individual, the risk, the uncertainty, the need to seek out resources. All the challenges that entrepreneurs face, social entrepreneurs face too, because both are trying to create something new that doesn't exist. Now we have two organizations down here, Pono Pacific and Mau Organic Farms. Both are great examples locally of social enterprises or social entrepreneurship ventures. Mau Organic Farms, most of us are very familiar with because UH West Oahu, we have an existing relationship with them. The overall goal of Mau Organic Farms is to redevelop the Waianae community. How they do it, or their specific means, is through organic farming, where they reconnect at-risk use to the soil because they believe there's a spiritual connection between the land and the people. They grow vegetables, organic vegetables, which they sell to local restaurants and use those proceeds to fund their operations, just like a business. Revenue generation to cover their expenses. In addition, they have various scholarship programs to send their graduates of their program to universities or community colleges. Pono Pacific, they're focused more on ecosystem restoration. As an organization, they seek out contracts and grants from either state or the federal or private sector to help reclaim some of Hawaii's natural ecosystem. They are most commonly known for trail restoration projects and also a project out on the east side of East Honolulu where they work to remove invasive seaweed. Both organizations have a vision of how society can be better. And, just like social service providers, they're doing actions towards it. They're taking the steps. They're working hard. Both organizations, like businesses, have a revenue-generating business model which provides funds for their operations, and in case of Mau Organic Farms, can help them provide needed benefits such as scholarships. Now, another organization I want to talk about, which I usually start my presentation with, is Leader of Light. Leader of Light is an international social entrepreneurship venture with a social entrepreneur. And the video will show you a little about their organization and what it is that they're seeking to do. The other great thing about watching Leader of Light is you can see how social entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurs can differ from place to place, means to means, but the essence is that vision for better society. After you finish this video, I have a local organization which we'll talk about next. So hopefully you've watched the video for Leader of Light, and here's another social entrepreneur venture, early stage one, called Ho'oulu Pacific, and yes, that's me in the picture. This is an organization that I've helped co-found, who I also help not on a day-to-day basis, but rather help their group, their organization move forward through the entrepreneurial, or rather social entrepreneurial process. The video, which is linked down there and also available up on Laulima, will show you a little bit about what the organization is seeking to do. So we're going to use Ho'oulu Pacific to talk about, or as an example, of a social enterprise, and also using some of their work to get a little bit more in depth about some more challenging, tricky concepts that social entrepreneurs need to be aware of. So first off, hopefully you've watched a video, so you see that they desire to create a new system, a new equilibrium in society through backyard aquaponics. And they are taking direct action by actually installing the systems for families. Currently, they're going to operate here in Hawaii with a vision to expand out to other Pacific islands where the need and the social impact is much more. Ho'oulu Pacific sets us great up well for discussion about metrics for success. When we talk about metrics in business, we can look at profits. We know business is successful if they are profitable. When you're seeking to do more than just make profits and have an impact on society, on people, on the environment, it's harder to define how you are successful, and it's hard to show people that you are being successful. Within the field of social entrepreneurship, we have developed metrics for success, often called the triple bottom line, or the 3 Ps. Triple bottom line looks at the profits, just like a business. Because in business, the bottom line is if you don't make money, you're not going to be successful, you won't exist. Same thing for social entrepreneurial venture. If you don't find a way to raise funds, if you're not being revenue positive, meaning your incoming cash exceeds your outgoing cash, you won't exist. You can't make a change if you're going bankrupt. Second bottom line, or another P, is people, the social side. How are you impacting people's lives? And the last one, planet, or the environment. Are you doing good for the environment? Are you sustainable from an environmental perspective? Are you at a minimum not doing anything negative that negatively hurts the planet as well as people? Metrics are important because as you try to compare different social entrepreneurship ventures, profits shows you which ones are financially viable and sustainable, whereas the other two, the people and the planet, the social environment, it can provide some means to track your progress. You can see whether or not they're doing what they set out to do. You can also track which ones are being more successful. And that's important because the more successful organizations probably deserve more of our attention. If they seek additional funds, we want to provide those funds to those who have a bigger impact in their mission. I showed the video on Ho'oulu Pacific because it allows us to have a more comprehensive discussion about metrics. Now here's Ho'oulu Pacific's stated mission statement: improve self-sufficiency and holistic health in the Pacific Islands through innovation in farming and distributed agriculture. If we're to look at the 3 Ps of profits, planet, and people, we see the profits that they seek to be financially self-sufficient. So they're not looking to make a profit, but they want to be able not to be dependent on grants. Planet, land use, resource consumption, waste management. Aquaponics are the way that they provide fresh fish and vegetables to families. There's better use of the land. There's less environmental runoff through fertilizers because these systems are self-enclosed. Without the fertilizer leaching into the environment, it won't go down to the reefs, it won't muddy the waters, it won't kill the reefs. There's also resource consumption. It uses significantly less water than regular agriculture. It recirculates the water. The waste management, the nitrates, none of that is lost to the environment. and the people. Provide a means for them to be self-sufficient, provide food for themselves, more importantly, provide healthy food. And once you have healthy food, you can start focusing on other aspects of your health. In the video, you saw some of the health problems facing Pacific Islands. Diabetes, obesity. Much of that can be linked to diet. Once you have a healthier body, you can focus on other aspects of your health, whether it be your mental health, financial health, emotional health. And ultimately, we know that as the individuals become more healthy, they have better prospects for the community as a whole to be in a better place. So let's take a look at some of their metrics and the ways they view or forecast how they can benefit society. Here's a look at some of their early financial projections to prove financial sustainability. Pro forma income statements, which we will discuss later in this course. You see the projected revenues, we see their projected expenses. The year one, they are positive, so it's a positive $9,000 in income, which is a little bit small, I know, but at least it shows that they're not going to be going bankrupt. Year two, as their operations grow, you can see they make a little bit more income to be self-sufficient. Planet. For Planet, they sought to what we call non-quantified metrics, which is good, but not as good as quantified metrics. So for non-quantified environmental benefits, they recognize that generally speaking, aquaponics uses 95% less water, which is good in an island because we have a limited amount of water. There is no agricultural runoff, which is the water used to fields seeping down, taking some of the topsoil off onto the reef so it blocks off the coral from getting the nutrients they want, or causing algae blooms, which cause reef damage. And there's no soil disease because there's no soil. Same time, by growing food in Hawaii for the families, there's this reduced carbon footprint where the food doesn't need to be shipped all the way from the mainland. Because remember, if you're shipping over a pound of lettuce that has to travel all those thousands of miles, that's taking a lot of gas or jet fuel or diesel from the ships. Also, they're making an argument about reclaimed agricultural land. If people are able to start growing their fish and vegetables in their backyards, it starts to create more agricultural usage of lands which traditionally or historically have not been used for agriculture. The people side. Here they actually quantified some of the benefits. First off, community benefits. They recognize if they are successful, they will reduce obesity in the community, and for the overall cost, about $1.15 million. As they calculated, obesity and medical costs to cover obesity in this community is significant. They're not going to eradicate obesity, but they'll lower it enough that the community does not need to spend about $1.1 million to cover those healthcare costs. Same for diabetes. They won't eliminate it, but they'll reduce its impact on the community. And from a financial perspective, because by quantifying it, we're able to see exactly how much they believe it will do. Total Waimanalo benefit to the community from better health is estimated at close to $2 million in reduced healthcare expenditures. So that's the money that's already been spent that will no longer be spent for those problems. In terms of water, as they calculated, if they are 95% more efficient with their water use, to grow an equivalent amount of food, it will cost an additional 3.25 million gallons through regular traditional agricultural means. So by growing in the backyards through aquaponics, that's 3.2 million gallons of water that's not being spent. And benefit to households. Avoided food costs is the idea that families, if they're able to grow food at home, they don't need to go to the grocery stores and spend the money to buy it there. As calculated, it'd be about $4,700 per family that's not spent buying their fish and vegetables elsewhere. In addition, because their business model has a revenue generating system for each household, it provides an income of about $2,300 for them for a total household benefit of about $7,000. Spread out to the 50 household benefit for the community, that's about $350,000. What's important here is that they've quantified their social benefits, provides tracking, because they can track, are they really reaching these marks that they've set for themselves, provides a means for comparison. So if you want to compare what they're doing with what other organizations are doing, we can see with numbers as to which one is having a bigger impact. Quantifying metrics is important because it's one thing to be able to say, oh, we're helping people, but if you can actually say we're helping people in this ways through this amount and we can back it up with numbers, proven numbers that are well researched, it makes for a much more powerful statement, much more useful information and data to see whether or not what you say you're doing truly aligns with what you're doing. So that concludes the presentation on social entrepreneurship. And here we're going to look one more time at those initial key questions. And we're not going to go over it together, but really I want you to look back and think, are there ways out there that you might be able to have a positive social impact on your community? Are there ways you can do it through social entrepreneurship by creating something new, either a new business model, a new organization? Truth is, social entrepreneurship doesn't have to be the answer. We have all those other forms of social engagement, social service provision, social activism. The idea is if you truly want to make an impact, and I believe many of us do, this is one of the means or one of the ways that you can do so. So with that concludes this presentation. Talk to you guys soon.